WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I have the Silkie Red Irish Whiskey, the legendary blended Irish whiskey. Yay! 46%, whiskey base number 172220. And this is 33 euros 90 over here in Germany. So 1,100 bottles worldwide. If you want to know what a Silkie is, it's this. It's basically a Irish mermaid. Legendary, and so on and so on. So first of all, we have here something made by James Dodery from the Sleeve Leak Distillery. Sleeve is Sliabh, would never known, and League is Liag. So, and they're in Donegal. Donegal would be on the west coast in the north in the Republic of Ireland. So maybe you've tried the original Silkie, which was released maybe about 4 years ago, at least over here in Europe. Might have been 3. You can basically use that for mixing. It was not great. And then they did a new release of the Silkie, which was much, much better, using now juice basically from the Great Northern Distillery. Then they brought out the Dark Legendary, which was a peated version, which was much better than I expected. And now we have a red, which uses red wine casks. So basically, if I did my research correctly, this is a 30% malt, 70% grain blended whiskey, which is not unusual in Ireland. Of the 30%, there's double distilled, triple distilled, and a very, very small portion of peated whiskey in there. Does that sound familiar to you? Maybe 2 Stacks do the same thing. Well, why? Because they have basically the same supplier, Great Northern Distilleries. You don't know Great Northern Distilleries in Ireland? Well, you might have heard of a man named John Teeling. He's the father of Jack Teeling, the distillery in Dublin. John Teeling founded then Cooley back in the end of the 1980s. He sold it then 25, 30 years later to a Beam. And then he took that money and bought an old Guinness brewery and converted it into a distillery up in Dundalk. And so this is what he is. He's a contract distiller. Now, I must admit, one thing I dislike about Irish whiskey, I love Irish whiskey, is the intransparency. Now, John Teeling is actually contributing to that non-transparency because as a contract distiller, you never know where the juice comes from. It used to be we had 3 places. Was it a Bushmills? Was it a Cooley? Or was it a Middleton product? Today, we have over 40 different producing distilleries in Ireland, and it's amazing what they're putting out. So this is basically a maximum of 5-year-old whiskey, more like a 3 or 4. And there's grain and there's malt. Now what he did is he took that grain and that malt and he put almost more than half, 55%, into so-called Ribera del Douro casks, red wine cask, and then 45%, less than half, he put in Rioja, Spanish red wine cask. The Rioja was 5 months, the Ribero was 4 months, and then he actually combine them back together and we have this wonderful thing. You can actually see the redness in the here in the glass. Now this is non-chilled filtered, yay, it's 46%, yay, and there were 1,100 bottles worldwide. This is sold out in Ireland. A few bottles are still able to be bought here in Germany. And this is actually a homage to a man named Red Hugh O'Donnell. Red Hugh O'Donnell, born 1572, died 1602. He was rebel up in the Donegal area, and he actually went over to Spain to get enough people as an army to fight against the evil British. Well, he went to Spain, he found the help, and he died. And so he's one of those tragic heroes of history. All right, so this arrived in the market in December 2020. Let's nose it. Okay, you get the youthfulness, but you also get that red wine moment. Now, I am not the expert. I cannot tell the difference between a Rioja and a Ribera. That's not my cup of tea at the moment. but I do know that there's a lot of red wine influence in here. It does smell like a blended whiskey for me. A little bit of grain is evident, and what I don't really get very much is that peated moment. I mean, it must be minuscule, that amount that they used here. Very, very well done. Very nice. As I said, the first Silkie, if you find an old bottle of Silkie, pass. If you find a new bottle of Silkie or a new bottle of the Dark Legendary or the Red, buy. It's actually something which is new in Ireland, and they're making great, great progress in making good sourced whiskey. John has actually distilled his own whiskey on his gin still. It took him, I don't know how many runs to actually be able to fill one barrel. And so now he's a producing distillery. He did a crowdsourcing event, and now he has enough money to build the distillery. He's in the process of building it. And I hope in 2021, maybe 2022 at the latest, his distillery will go online and he will actually start producing heavily peated Irish whiskey. There is historical documentation that shows in that area of up in the northwestern part of Ireland, in the Donegal region, they actually produced historically heavily peated. Who would have known? So, welcome, heavily peated Irish whiskey in the future. Yeah. Okay, very, very decent stuff here. Now, it's not old. It's not something I'm going to write home about and say this is the best whiskey ever. But this is a wonderful whiskey out on the summer porch. Cheers. Now, this is one of those whiskeys where once again I'm going to dilute it down. I'm going to take it down to about 40%. And what's going to happen is it's going to be much, much more enjoyable for me. I have a tiny little bit of bitterness towards the end. I have a lot of chili pepper. I have a lot of sharpness, a lot of heat in this whiskey that doesn't need to be there. It's just youthful heat. Now, if you take it down a little bit lower, be down to 40%, which John didn't want to do because he wanted to have a non-chilled filter product, which I adore. But this whiskey actually is better at 40% in my personal opinion. Without water, it's a C minus, and with water, it's a. Mhm. It's a C plus. That's very, very good. It really, really harmonizes everything. You still have a tiny little bit of alcohol kick in the end, not kick, push, but it doesn't overpower it anymore. That red wine shows through. The grain is actually a little bit more subtler. I think at 40 some percent than at 46. It's just an overall good whiskey. So why didn't he do it at 40%? Well, he wanted to have it non-chill filtered. What happens if you filter this under at a very chill, about between 0 and 3% degrees Celsius or 3 degrees Celsius? Is these fatty acids in here come together. You actually have like a coffee filter, you push it through, and all those fatty acids remains in there. So if this was winter, it was released in December of 2020. Imagine it's minus 10 degrees Celsius outside. You put it in the truck, you take it out of the truck, you look at it and go, oh, it's cloudy, yucky, it's gone bad. Whiskey doesn't go bad. What happens is the solubility here of the liquid over 46%. There's so much alcohol in it that there's no problem with those fatty acids. Under 40%, you create something which is called an Irish mist, a Scottish mist, which is actually a sign of high quality whiskey, people. And so, but hey, we have dumb people putting ice cubes and not knowing that. And so he just put it to 46%, which is okay. Now my question of the day is, what other Irish whiskey do you know out there that has a red wine finish? Neither do I. Port, yes, not a red wine. That's actually a fortified wine. Sherry, fortified wine. Marsala, fortified wine. All these are fortified wines. I'm talking just real normal red wine. I don't know. That's why there's no comparison whiskey today. Usually I would have a comparison, but I just don't know what to compare it to. I do have some scotches that I could compare that have a red wine finish, but nothing from Ireland that I am aware of at the moment. If you do know, please put it down in the comments. That would be of very much interest to me. Question of the day: what is your favorite red wine whiskey, finished or also matured? That'd be interesting. Thank you very much for watching. Value for money, I'm going to give this a solid C. C plus with water, C minus without water, and a price solid C. I think 33 euros 90. It is no age statement. It's between 3 and 5 years. But those red wine casks really do a great job here, and they're worth the X couple of euros that you have to pay for it. Only complaint is the following: bottle size. It doesn't fit. It's too big. Yes, I have an extra, but even without those, it still wouldn't fit. This is a top shelf type of thing. I live in Germany. Germany, everything has a norm, and this is outside that norm. And maybe John wants it to be outside the norm. Who knows? James. Oh, not John. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, James. James. Doubtery. I'm so sorry. James. Sorry. Maybe he wanted to be outside the norm. He wanted a nice, high, tall bottle to have a eye catcher. You won. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much for liking. Thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you very much for telling others. And sorry, James, for calling you John. All the best. Bye-bye.